NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
So, Dom, Trump said a lot yesterday. Let's start on those remarks that it's okay for NATO to shoot down Russian jets. How significant do you think that is?
Well, out of a day of a fairly freewheeling set of announcements, both at the podium and later on in the press conference and on Truth Social, that for me was the most important part of what he had to say all day. It will be very significant. And now this is coming on the back. If you remember Radosław Sikorski, who's Poland's foreign minister, he was speaking at a special session at the UN yesterday, and he said, "I have only one request to the Russian government. If another missile or aircraft enters our space without permission, deliberately or by mistake, and gets shot down, and the wreckage falls on NATO territory, please don't come here to whine about it. You have been warned." So very punchy from Poland. That was then backed up by Keith Kellogg, General Keith Kellogg, Trump's special envoy for Ukraine. He was in open session, caught on camera. You're never caught on camera at these things. So I thought this was very deliberate as well. He was speaking to Finnish President Alexander Stubb, who's asked about shooting down Russian jets, and he said he thought what Radosław Sikorski had said was really good. We're just going to have to take a harder role. So I thought all this signalling was there, fairly subtle. I tweeted at the time, I thought this was the green light from the US administration to say, NATO, European NATO, take such action to shoot down a piloted Russian aircraft. The US administration, we're not going to sort of overtly support it, but we're certainly not going to say it's not a good idea. Anyway, all subtleties out the window. Trump then asked straight a little bit later, would you support such an action? He went, yes. So I think there's a very, very clear signal there. I mean, Russia should be in absolutely no doubt now. If they put another aircraft through NATO airspace and it gets shot down, they cannot. They will try, I'm sure, but they cannot try and get the narrative out there that this is going to carve a wedge between European NATO and the US. This is a complete aberration from what Trump wants, etc., etc. He's been totally clear that he would not have a problem with such action. And therefore, I think that has effectively given the green light to European NATO to shoot down a Russian jet.
Yeah, and we'll get to Trump's other remarks in a moment, which is what has really got people excited. But I think we're absolutely right to zoom in on this first of all, because you imagine a scenario where Trump said, no, I don't think they should do that. I mean, how serious do you think that would have been if that had been the messaging that had come out of the UN meetings yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, that would have been an absolute gift to Russia, and that would be a very hard policy position to try and get past. If he was asked the question straight, if he said, no, I think that'd be going too far, or I wouldn't welcome such a move, or whatever language you want to put it in, diplomatic or otherwise, then it would have been exceptionally hard for anyone in European NATO to want to take such a step. But as it is, not only did he not offer a fairly wishy-washy grey statement, he came straight out and said, yes, he would be happy with such a move.
Well, he also had a lot more to say.
We have a lot of meetings scheduled today, going pretty late into the night. But this is an important one, and we have great respect for the fight that Ukraine is putting up. It's pretty amazing, actually. The biggest progress is that the Russian economy is terrible right now. It's, as you know, it's crashing. And that, frankly, Ukraine is doing a very good job of stopping this very large army. It's pretty amazing. You know, this is a war that should have ended in 3 days, 4 days. People said it was going to be very quick, and you got to hand it to the Ukrainian soldiers and everybody involved. It's still going on, and that's not a good thing for Russia. This was supposed to be quick, and so, you know, Russia doesn't look very distinguished, having taken 3.5 years now, right? It's about 3.5 years of very hard fighting, and it looks like it's not going to end for a long time.
Now, after that, Trump posted this on social media, and I'm abridging it slightly. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience and the financial support of Europe and in particular NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Now, I don't think I've heard any world leader say that since the start of the full-scale invasion. But how significant do you think this is, Dom?
Okay, at this point, and I'm sorry to pour cold water over a lot of analysis that's going around the world right now, but so what? So what? He has said diametrically the opposite stuff, you know, in the past.
Last week, I think.
He could say so again this afternoon, tomorrow, whatever, on Truth Social. it's actions, not words. And so far, his actions have been not quite as full-throated in support of Ukraine as that comment might suggest. His newfound policy is. It is actions, not words. But on words, if we just dial in on words for a moment, that long post on Truth Social did end with him saying, "I wish both countries well. Good luck to all." I mean, this is a war, okay? And you apparently have just made a massive policy reversal and you're now hugely supportive of Ukraine. They can win, they can take back their territory and maybe even go further, he says. But never mind that. Good luck to all, and I wish both countries well. I mean, that kind of, I think, gives the impression or shows us quite how much thought went into putting that post out there. So I watched it, I nodded, I listened to it, and then I went and had a cup of tea and a sandwich, and and I'll see what comes next. Actions, not words, I'm afraid.
I agree. I mean, I think we're right to be cautious on this, but it has got people very excited. If we were to be slightly more positive about it, you would say that this has been posted by the White House social media afterwards. That does suggest that this is a little bit more official policy rather than off-the-cuff remarks that sometimes we know Trump is inclined to do. And yet you had Marco Rubio shortly afterwards saying that this can only end at the negotiating table. So again, some more mixed messages coming out of this. Where do you stand on this point that another interpretation of this, and I must confess this is sort of more of my reading on this, that Trump is, through one lens, just wiping his hands of the war to a certain degree. He's saying, look, I'm not going to be an obstructor to Ukraine and how Europe wants to fight this war. And that is progress. That is positive. But I am not going to go further in Ukraine, in support of Ukraine. This is something that NATO and Europe needs to handle itself. And on that reading, that's not entirely positive, is it, Dom?
No, I mean, I think that was fairly clear. He was saying to Europe, he mentioned the European Union. Don't know if he'd forgotten that the UK is no longer in the European Union, but European NATO and the European Union and all you lot over there in Europe, he was basically saying, it's over to you. The US is walking away. He said he will still sell arms to NATO and they can do with those arms whatever they like. It's back to the business arrangement of NATO countries buying arms and then, if they so wish, and they do, gifting those arms to Ukraine. But he was very clear that this is now Europe's problem. The US is walking away. So was it a strong statement? Was it a bit wishy-washy? There were some comments in there that I think were fairly clear. But what was not in there that I think was also very clear? No new pledges for money for Ukraine from the United States, no new pledges of weapons, no discussion about this being a community of values. It's just that business arrangement of selling arms to NATO, no new sanctions on Russia, no comment at all about the many, many deadlines that Trump himself has set for Russia. Take your pick, there's been quite a few, but no comment about all the missed deadlines that Putin said he'd adhered to and then didn't, and no comment. So there was no mention of that at all. But the very clear message was, Europe, this is now your problem.
Deeds, not words, folks. Well, we'll be unpacking this in a lot more detail and the other developments that have taken place over the course of the past 24 hours on today's episode of Ukraine the Latest. We look forward to seeing you there.